Welcome to the Linux Saloon, a place to discuss tech, open source, and where Linux is always on tap. Each show will have a talk about a Linux project, a distribution, a desktop environment, or an application. But sometimes we throw all that out the window and we just talk about the news or just riff. Is that what they call it when people just like talk? You know, they snap their fingers, a riff? I don't know. We're just going to talk about Linux, tech, open source. It's all on the table for discussion. This week is a news flight night. I'm Nate, a Linux fitness and vintage tech enthusiast with an almost unhealthy obsession with the OpenSUSE project. And with me today, I have Eris, Colin, Jinda, Eric Adams, Mark, Adam Grubbs, and Swift. How is everybody?
Good.
Excellent.
Good. How are you, Nate?
Good enough. Good enough. You're slightly more enthused this week than last week, so that's always a plus. I think it was like Jinda that like barely eked out that he was happy to be there last week. Yeah. It's like as he's wiping drool off the side of his mouth because he fell asleep hearing my little monologue opening. Right. Yeah. Well, coming up.
Swift is so relaxed, he's almost horizontal.
It looks like he's on a deck. Or he's like that. Have you ever seen that episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation where the traveler is like phasing in and out of reality? And it's just like, yeah, that's what Swift is looking like there for just a little bit.
Thank God he's not wearing a red shirt.
That's a good thing, yeah, because we like Swift. We don't want to have...
No, it's a deck. It's actually by the water, by the harbor. I just happen to like that background.
Well, I mean, you could have fooled me, except for your phasing in and out of reality. Oh no, he's traveling. Oh, now he's gone. Right. Well, we liked him. So on the dock for today, we've got a news flight coming up. We're going to check what's on the menu for next week, do a last call. But first, what have you been doing in Linux? Colin, sounds like you have got a brand new operating system for a kitchen appliance. What is this?
Yeah. No, I wouldn't say for a kitchen appliance.
Oh, okay.
I discovered that the developer of a bunch of Unity was working on, I think it came up in chat in Telegram on the Linux Saloon. It's called Blend OS. So I thought I'd sort of take it through its paces a bit. Unfortunately, it did an update and it's not booting. So I'm at that stage at the moment. I might have to reinstall it, but it's based on Arch and it's immutable, and it seems to be running the same path as vanilla OS. So I think they're sort of very close, but it's the same thing. Everyone seems to be on this containerizing things at the moment and being able to run other repositories from, say, DNF, apt, and Arch and all this thing. So you can install things from other... This one's based on Arch, Vanilla's based on Ubuntu, so you can install things from DNF, from apt as well, Ubuntu 22.04 and 10. So I was just sort of taking it through its paces. Unfortunately, it's got an update that you don't run the normal Arch update, you run a Blend update instead, and that did something to this laptop here with that troublesome NVIDIA card. I don't know if that's the problem, but maybe the update was just not right. But it's only very new. I don't think it's even an alpha or anything. It's just something he decided he was working on. He had some time. He wasn't at school or something, so he had some time and he wanted to work on this. So people have jumped on board and checking it out, so I thought I'd do the same.
Oh, cool.
Had a bit of time to play around. It's not too bad, but yeah, definitely a lot of work to be done. But yes, that seems to be everyone's jumping on the immutability train at the moment with OSs. So I think they've still got a bit of way to go to get it right, but it's interesting nonetheless, I must say.
Well, that's very cool. So
yeah.
How old is the computer you are trying it on?
Oh, I'd have to think this one is maybe a 2010, 2011, maybe, or 12.
And is this...
It's definitely 10 years old plus.
Is this your newest computer?
No, my newest one is the Intel NUC.
Okay. And just Just speaking of
Yeah,
that, just
go on.
as a quick segue, because I forgot to do it earlier, and I saw Eris put the link in the chat.
Yes.
So we have a straw poll, and I forgot to plug it before I kicked it off to you, of how old is your newest computer. So if you find folks that are in the chat right now, if you can click on that straw poll and just, it's one question. It's a real easy question, and it's a real fun question. How old is your newest computer? Anyway, so I was just curious if maybe you ran. See how I kind of segued it in there like that? See, that was pretty slick.
Yes, very nice. It was
did
well
you?
done.
I want to pat myself on the back there. Oh, hurt my shoulder. So you said the update process is what broke it. Basically.
Yeah,
took
it's
it down?
just booting into a black screen with just a blinking cursor, which has happened before. So I don't know what's happened with that update.
NVIDIA based, or is this a was this some?
I don't know if NVIDIA was installed. I can't remember.
Okay.
But it definitely, they got the usual thing, the flat hub and all that sort of thing. So yeah, I was just messing around with it, trying to containerize and installing things and doing those typical software install things to see how it works. And I didn't get too far before that happened. So
Okay.
I might just download a new ISO and try again and see how we go. But I
Right.
was running vanilla OS for quite a while, and this is sort of a similar thing.
Okay.
And I think it's Nix OS does the same thing. So does the Silverblue. I think they're all sort of mixed in with the same immutability thing. The difference with this one is, I noticed when it does an update, I was reading in the terminal that it flicks off the immutability, does the update, and then flicks the immutability back on again. I don't know if the others do that. I'm not sure how that works.
That's a good question for like Adam, because I know he loves his Silverblue and he talks very highly of it. Basically,
here we go, guys.
Basically, if you start talking about immutable desktops, you would think Adam was talking about like his really new hot girlfriend or something like that. That's kind of how it feels. So, Adam, please talk about your immutable desktop.
Sorry, I don't have enough RAM for a girl in my life. No. So this is kind of a weird way of doing it, I guess. That's basically like making something read only until you need to like change something and then putting it back to read only. Seems like kind of defeating the point of having immutability to begin with. Because like then like why couldn't something else just turn that off, right? So like vanilla OS handles it differently because they have a thing called AB root, where like you have two immutable roots that it like swaps between and stuff. And Silverblue is not specifically just two. Silverblue handles like multiple OS tree images, and you can then boot into each one of them as needed. So this is like kind of a simpler way, I guess, but also less robust. Because like if you turn off the immutability, do the update, and then turn it back on, like, okay, that's fine. Like afterwards, you can't, break things, I guess, but it completely removes the advantage of like having a rollback or like the actual transactional thing that comes with an immutable system. It's all of the restrictions of immutability with none of the benefits. It's just that's what.
I think it may be early days. Maybe that's why he's doing it that way. I don't know. It is very early, so he's definitely got a lot of work to do, and he even says that in the Telegram group, that there is a lot of work to do. It's amazing when somebody brings out something like that and you look in the Telegram group, can we do this and can we do that? And everyone's asking for all these things. It's like the poor guy's only just sort of started it.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting concept. I'm just wondering how far we're going to get with these immutability desktops, and also, jumping onto other repositories to be able to install things from other repos. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the way Vanilla OS is doing it's actually a pretty good first step into that whole thing. Like I think they finally they have a good refined process for handling it. I feel like there could be more integration. Like I could see, they use like the distro box thing to have the other OS repos available. Like I could see maybe a way of integrating that later with GNOME software. You know, like they have the little drop down where you can choose like Flatpak or whatever else. Like maybe in the future having a drop down where you can choose like I want the Arch version or the Fedora version or something, or having that kind of flexibility is there. But I think they're doing a pretty good job so far. It's like you said, it's early days for this, and Silver, Blue, and all those kind of started, the whole trend. I feel like at least mainstream trend, but that doesn't necessarily mean that their way was the best way, right? Like people are coming up with better ways to handle this, better ways to integrate it, and better tooling to make it a little more easy to work with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having something like an overlay, so like the way Vanilla OS has like their second image is sort of like in the chamber, so to speak. And any changes you make to that image through like their AB root tool, so like adding packages that you might want, drivers, etc., that adds it to the thing before you actually switch into it. So there's no real chance for it to really mess up. If it messes up, it hasn't booted into it in the first place. And if the command doesn't go properly, it doesn't do the transaction. So it waits for the command to finish, for the changes to finish and give a good exit code, and then make the transaction to the image. And like, so that kind of gets around the inflexibility of immutability while still providing that system of recovery and stuff. So I think the Vanilla OS guys are probably ahead of everyone on this front.
Yeah, I think because I was running Vanilla OS, so I think what it does, like you said, I think it writes. It's got two images.
Yeah,
didn't you say? And then it writes to one image, but if it knows it's going to fail, it drops back automatically to that original image, right? I think that's how it works.
Correct. So I think when you run the command, like the changes, that it doesn't actually make the transactional update to the B image until it knows that it ran properly. So I guess like an exit, if it returns an exit code of 0 or whatever it expects to return, and then if that was successful, then it will do the transaction. And then when you reboot, you automatically reboot into the B image while still maintaining the A image, so that if you need to roll back, you can roll back to the A image, et cetera, et cetera. Which is all of the advantages of immutability, that the other OS you were speaking of is not implemented.
That's how SteamOS works, I believe. It does that AB
similar,
TikTok type go back and forth. Now, I see Prophetic just hopped on, because I was going to say, golly, I don't know how MicroOS, the OpenSUSE project, how that works exactly, because like in Tumbleweed it has snapshots, and so every time there's an update you have like a read-only snapshot you can go back to, which is a different way of doing it, and it's not immutable. It's a snapshot of your working system. While I understand that a transactional updates, it's a known working set of packages that is running, so it knows it's in a known working state when it starts. Technically with OpenSUSE, Tumbleweed, you don't know, or any rolling distribution, you don't really know if it's going to run until you reboot it. Technically. I guess maybe that's anything, really.
MicroOS is still immutable, so they lock down the root file, except for like var, etc. And I think there's another file path that's writable, but for the root part, it's still immutable. You can't just like write in stuff. The only way you can write in stuff is using transactional update shell, and that's for like purely drivers. I think Silverblue has the same thing, OS tree install, and it's meant to be like for only minimal base layer stuff like VPN add-ons and whatnot. I would say I'm curious to why Adam says like they're kind of ahead of the game, because like the whole ABS system is the way they're kind of doing is cool. But I think where MicroOS desktop is ahead is that you can think about it as like it has an A, B, C, D, E, F, G as long as your snapshots go back. So you always even if the one in the chamber goes bad, you have C and D and E and F as far back as your snapshots can go. So that's where I think MicroOS is.
That becomes a manageability issue, right? That becomes something you have to specifically configure for pruning, something you have to consider in deployments when it comes to maximum number of images, maximum number of routes. And many deployments of something like MicroOS would probably have some other method of this, whether it be running in a VM snapshot or something like that. But this, I guess, micro OS would probably be more of a container services thing. But
speaking completely out of ignorance, it probably uses a very similar process that Tumbleweed does for managing past snapshots. Basically, it's tuned to the file system, and so it knows to prune them off to prevent the
exactly. Yeah, there's no
well beforehand.
The whole thing that Richard Brown really made it I guess the true north of the creation of the project was to make it as least maintainable as possible. So it was never really meant to be something like something you can tweak and configure, or it's supposed to be, I just want to get up and running. If I want to do containerized work, I got Podman by default, runtimes, and I got Flatpaks. And when I'm desperate for like an NVIDIA configuration thing, I got transactional update shell. That's always discouraged, always told people like at risk, used for minimal reasons, but for the most part, it's really meant to be clean in that way. So in my opinion, it's ahead of the game compared to all the mutable systems out there so far.
Definitely has like the feature set, sure, but I think it's from a user manageability thing. I think handling an AB root is a lot easier for just a desktop user to have to deal with than like having to manage multiple images, multiple rebases, and things like that come with.
Who's managing multiple snapshots, though? I'm curious.
Pardon?
I'm curious, what would be the scenario if someone had to manage snapshots?
Well, it would be a lot more. It's a lot more. It would be easier to automate if you only have the target of 2 roots, right? I
think that's where Snapper comes in, and the system they have is just, if you want to roll back, it's Snapper is, and all that stuff is
right, and that relies on something like BTRFS, does it not?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, so you just so if you want to,
you're then stuck with BTRFS.
Oh, so it's the file system you don't like. It's not so much that they have.
No. I'm just saying, like it's a more inflexible thing, I guess, is kind of what I'm looking at, right? So if micro OS as a package is what you need, that's great, and like I guess like that approach is pretty awesome because it's very much like a bundled product approach, but I can see something like AB root being easily applied to something else without having to necessarily the OpenSUSE tooling behind it.
Yeah, I guess it comes down to the preference of like the tooling, but yeah, like I when I boot up when you saw micro OS desktop, it usually gets rollbacks by default, snapshots by default, and if something does get wonky, you don't even boot into it. You just boot into the known last working thing. So there's nothing really to manage in terms of the snapshot aspect.
Yeah, it's just all implementation detail at the end of the day, right?
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Eric? You had a comment you're gonna make about immutable. I know that you love immutable desktops, and you're also one of those that really sings the immutable desktop song. So
well, I think both of you are talking about deploying. So this is all very enterprise level. Mm-hmm. I don't, and Adam, you said this is. Sorry.
Yeah, no, micro OS desktop is specifically made for people who want to just work. They don't want to maintain anything in their system. They get the best of Tumbleweed with rolling, but with the stability of a self-healing bootable environment. So if something passes through QA, factory QA and Tumbleweed, and it breaks your system, the micro OS user wouldn't even notice because you'll reboot and it'll say failed reboot, rebooting to last snapshot, and you just go back to work. So that's where it's like, it's not really made for like enterprise. It could be applied because I'm actually in talks with my coworkers about using our hot desk, using Silverblue or micro OS desktop, instead of having like Windows and machines just dangling out there, like 30 of them just sitting out there in the hallways. So that's
still a professional side of computer use. Like I guess I struggle with immutable, thinking of any reason that I would ever need AB root or anything like this. I can count on one hand the number of times that I've broken my system in the last 10 years. And I'm running all different distributions, like, and even doing dumb things that are like really risky. Whereas someone who was just using their system, running updates that come to them from the distribution, like, I guess I just don't, Like I told
Yeah.
Adam earlier today, it feels like a solution in search of a problem.
Yeah, that's what I used to feel that myself. But then when I started really digging into how a lot of these, like just like the PPA problem, right? Where it's like you're just kind of risking trusting someone with access to your system. When you
Right, but how many
run
times has that ever actually happened? That's my point is I understand the theoretical possibility of something like that happening. And I agree, managing all these PPAs is a pain in the butt. But what I'm saying is if the point of this is to harden the core of the OS so that it doesn't get broken, what is breaking it in the first place that is required to have this level of like isolation and lockdown?
Yeah, thankfully, systems have become so resilient that it's like you said, like for your case, it hasn't happened in a long time. But if you read all over the internet, you'll see people constantly, tweaking things and breaking things and, fiddling with things. And that doesn't mean that it's to discourage that. It just means that you want it to be even more resilient, so that even if I wanted to test something, I can just do what I need to do. And then
Yeah.
instead of just having like a whole bunch of config files, like and apps that I might not even use ever again, sprayed all throughout my file system, I'll just roll back and this would never happen. So it's
Right.
a matter of convenience. Like the same people used to do this with X, like server. Like if you bejorked your X server, well, you should have known better. It's like, well, now we have a new level of convenience, and so we're really kind of bringing an introduction to a new level of convenience with like maintaining your system. Of
See,
course, it's not for everybody, but it's just a new level of convenience.
It's funny that you see it as a level of convenience and I see it as an annoyance because it's yet one more thing I have to deal with.
But that's kind of what we were both speaking about, the tooling and stuff, is that it's such that you don't have to think about it. Like it is
until the
handled in a
first time
way.
I try to do something where it requires me to, like you guys are saying, like you have to do this AB root and I had to tweak something and now I have to
That's
reboot
all
into
handled.
another
That's what I'm
image.
saying,
Like,
right?
it
That's all
just,
handled for you.
okay.
Sorry,
I like
I'm
my
not
computer
trying
the
to
way
like
it is.
shout you
I don't,
down.
I'm the wrong person to be discussing this apparently.
No, you're
So-
you're a good person because you're on the outside of it, right? That's a good
Yeah.
perspective to have.
Also, keep in mind that Eric Adams probably still has one of those wood grain TVs that sits on the floor with the rabbit ears.
Probably.
No,
See, that's why I said enterprise, because honestly, I could see this like my daughter, like I give her a computer where I don't want her to mess something up. Like, okay, great. So a school would be a perfect example of a
Right,
library, a cafe,
Agree,
like
I think.
any place where you have a human being interfacing with a computer that's not theirs and you're responsible for maintaining it. Like, yes, I could totally get this, but me as sitting here in front of my laptop right now, I do not need or want immutability because it's my computer. I should be able to do whatever I want with it.
Right.
And you still can. Adam, you want to talk about OS tree?
Yeah, well, I was actually going to talk about an example of how this would actually, like, it's an actual problem that this is a solution for that you're not searching for. How many people have you known over the years that don't do upgrades, right? From like an Ubuntu version to another one, or from Fedora to another one, because they're always the solution is it's going to mess up, so I need to just nuke and pave, right? This is a way that you could do that kind of upgrade without the worry of not being able to go back. Because like if you go on a normal machine from say 2210 to 2304, that's a very like there's no control Z for that, right? That's your system is now different. And you like it's a real pain to try to go backwards. But something like this would allow you to like, I'm gonna go to 2304. Oh wait, like this application I use doesn't work or whatever happens, like any issues you might have, or even if the upgrade goes, up generally, like you can just roll back, right, to the other route, or in the case of Silverblue and MicroOS, the many other routes behind, and just go back to where you were. Or like Prophetic was saying, if we are users that do like to just mess with stuff, install crazy drivers or whatever that we want to do, you can still do that. You just use a different command instead of just the normal. Instead of just saying sudo this, you do ab root exec this, right?
Bingo.
And then
it's a different command.
If it messes up, you just roll back, because no big deal. But if it's a normal system, and like I've tried setting up Snapper with root, it's a pain unless you're running on OpenSUSE where it's already set up for you. But like, yeah, like rolling back is like a good thing, even if you don't think like it's often, and it probably isn't that often that people do like such catastrophic things. But if something like a big operating system version upgrade, if it eliminates any worry about that being a bad experience, that's awesome, right?
I'll say too is that there is this Flatpaks have come a long way, and so when you have this app issue and app dependency, Flatpak handles that considerably well. But even then, Flatpaks they just assume that if it's just Flatpak, it's always sandbox. But containerized and sandbox aren't exactly the same thing.
Right.
So even Flatpaks are having access to home directory files and even sometimes system stuff. And kind of puts the icing on the cake for me is the whole like distro box or toolbox type of layer, which is what Blend OS is built on top of. And for work, for example, like there was a specific app version that I needed, and I was able to get the best of rolling distro Tumbleweed, and then macOS makes it immutable. But then I have DistroBox to get a Debian version of it that I used specifically for my work use case. So it's like I get the best of both worlds of like rolling but stable at the same time, and that's at the app level. I could get stable at that.
But the best part is, Eric, this isn't a across the board thing. There's going to be tons of distros that are out there that aren't going to do this. So it's like,
oh yeah, no, I get it, and
like,
I'm glad. It's different strokes, different folks. I get that. If this is something that interests you, that you feel benefits you to be able to do AB root, like fantastic. As an aside, I want to generate have a procedurally generated background behind Prophetic, so as he's walking, he could be like walking through caverns or around mountains or something.
But it have to be like an early '90s CD-ROM game background.
Oh yes, yeah, exactly.
Like an animated mist background.
Remember that screensaver where you're going through trails or whatever, like these hallways, and it kept going another hallway, whatever, something like that.
Or that Windows 95 maze screensaver.
That's exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as like the immutable desktop thing is concerned, it seems like here's where I don't have an answer. So I have multiple systems. They're all different, and so they all have different configurations at the core. And so then I wonder, like how some of them require a special driver that I have to install. So on a immutable desktop, do I have to at every transactional update then re-implement Just once.
Yep. And then all the transactions after that include that layered package going forward.
Okay. So, all right. So I guess to me, in my mind, I can't figure out how it's going to be different from doing a transactional update to a regular update in Tumbleweed, because I still have those snapshots. So what am I gaining besides locking down my root a little bit more? I don't know.
It's less about specifically OpenSUSE's implementation and more about the overall potential of the concept and the technology. Like OpenSUSE handles it one way, Fedora another. Like there's no reason that like a specific image has to just be for disaster recovery. Like you could have a separate root that handles, say, just has Plasma, or another one that has GNOME installed, and like you could then switch roots with different desktops without having to worry about like, oh man, I installed the GNOME on top of KDE, now my theme's all messed up because things are all mixed up, and that kind of thing happens, right? So you can kind of get around a lot of those weird things that happen by having different roots, right?
I think it'd be fun. It's just I'm gonna just throw this little seed out there because I don't want to belabor this too long. So we still have that. We gotta get to the straw poll that Eris did. So if you haven't done that straw poll, how old is your newest computer? Please vote in that straw poll. But I think we should do a immutable desktop just distro challenge, just because I think I need to push myself into just trying one, just to try one. So I'm gonna plant that seed right now and see what grows from that. So just some ideas. That was suggestions at linuxsaloon.com. If you have any suggestions, by the way, please send them there. But I think it'd be fun to do a distro challenge based on that by itself.
I'll just say one quick thing on top of this is that the massively powerful thing that Silverblue is doing. It's almost like I don't know if Adam agrees with this, but I feel like Silverblue is like primed for like immutability for work and enterprise, and
Mm.
macOS is like immutability for like the consumer at home, like almost like Chromebook style esque, but on steroids because you can still do all the Linuxy stuff. But what
Yeah.
they're able to do is like if I'm a Silverblue user, I'm doing something really cool. I can take a snapshot of my image and swap it and give it away to someone. Say, hey, check out what I built. Can you QA this? And the person can literally hop into their snapshot and mess around, get some feedback, and then give it back to the dev and go roll back to their system. So it's going to make QA and really cool streamlining experimentation, like lightning speed, because people are going to be swapping Silverblue images now, like they're swapping iOS ISO images, which is really fascinating to me.
So
Yeah.
my last thing is my rationale, Eric, is in the words of Marge Simpson, I just think they're neat.
You know what? And honestly, I think as far as like Linux and software is concerned, that is pretty much the gold standard for me as well for everything.
Yeah.
Just because it's
think
neat.
It's neat. Yeah.
Yeah,
We are still in the early days. We're still in the early days, Eric. So I agree with you. There's room for apprehension for a good reason, but there's good signs now. Real fast, people are doing some really cool stuff. So,
And I just want to further convolute this a little bit. Sean Gold in the chat says, Cubicle Nate, the Commodore 64 OS is technically an immutable OS, which is true because it sits on a ROM chip that you actually plug into it. So that is definitely immutable. You can't do anything to that. And so I guess when you put it like that, that's pretty neat.
yeah, trailblazer right there.
Who knew that 1983 technology would be so coming back? All right.
Yep.
Well, and the reasons I don't like it too, but that's a whole nother conversation. Awesome. So blendOS.co is where you can look up BlendOS if you want to give that a try. Colin, thank you very much for sharing that. Just to kind of wrap this thing up like a like a hostage in a closet somewhere, I guess. But anyway, so I guess if we should, that's another distribution I think maybe we need to keep our eyes on and check out in a future date as well. For the StrawPoll, Eris, this one brought another smile to my face. I think you're just knocking it out of the park with these single questions that, like, I don't know, maybe I didn't think about, that I think is a lot of fun to do. I don't know what the participation was on this. In fact, I was actually had some questions as to, well, go ahead and kick it off, and we'll talk after that.
So I put, how old is your newest computer? Oh, people are still voting right now. How old is your newest computer? I think I put, it could be a laptop, it can be a desktop, it can be convertible. It's all fine. It doesn't really matter if it's not like a tower computer. I just wanted to know, because sometimes people think people who use Linux use the oldest machines. So this is not necessarily mean that you don't have old machines, because you can have more than one computer, but this is just the newest computer that you have. At first place is 22% between 1 year old and 2 years old, and then is 17% less than 6 months, 17% 5 years old to less than 10 years old, 14% 2 years old to less than 3 years old, and then it's 6 months to 1 year old. That's 11%, and then 6% 3 years old to less than 4 years old. Other got 2. I don't think anybody told me anything about other.
Would other be like some it has a new CPU, but the main board is old? Anyway, keep going. I'm sorry. Keep going. I'm derailing.
Anyways, I made it so that it's at least less than 6 months old, and then at the top end is 15 and older. So I think I got everything in between. And 3% said 4 years old and less than 5 years old, and then 3% said 10 years old to 15 years old, and 3% said 15 years old and older. So there was one person at least that got 15 to more than 15 years
And
old.
the person with the 15-year-old computer that's their newest, you need to splurge and treat yourself well. Get a newer computer.
Yeah, maybe even shoot for like 10 years old, huh?
Yeah, like 5 years newer.
Wow. Hold up, your newest computer is 15?
Somebody said that.
Somebody said that.
It could be a troll, like Adam might have
I
done.
think
I'm
that's a troll.
So I did get 2 replies, and they were in the other, but I think at least they didn't say they were. One of them was my all-in-one desktop had Windows 7 to begin with, so that says how old it is. Good poll. And then somebody else said, not a lot of computers that are between 3 and 4 years old. One would think that there should be some, but again, this is just your newest computer. This is not all the computers you have. You can have a 10-year-old computer you can still be using, but it's not relevant to this one poll.
I mean, I understand that because for the longest time, I've been using a T420 as my daily driver, you know, and so, I mean, that's a pretty old machine.
Yeah,
you
it
know,
is.
But, I mean, now my newest machine is a 2015 MacBook Pro, so I'm kind of happy with that. But it's just that I've been using the other machine so long. I would like something new. I just don't have the budget for it just yet.
Makes sense.
But yeah.
And T420s, those were pretty solid machines.
Oh, it is. I'm looking at it right now.
They're
Yeah.
solid.
Now, I kind of wish there was a part 2 to this. Not just now. I'm just not thinking of this. I didn't think about it earlier, but now I am. So for someone who's using a computer that's 15 years and older, what are you running on it? Like what is are you running Linux? Are you running Windows XP? What is it you are doing on that machine? Like I'm really curious what they're actually using and how well it's working for them. I mean, maybe it's gonna be like a window manager, someone like a real minimalist who they just don't need anything else. It's really I'm really curious now.
I think someone's kidding. I really do. I don't. There, you would have like the oldest computer I have that I still use is a laptop that my daughter uses, and it's probably 11, maybe 12, and it runs Ubuntu LTS. I upgraded it, so I think it has 8 gigs of RAM. But it is, I mean, it's very slow. But I mean, for what she does with it, it doesn't matter. She started to do a little more with programming and writing documents and stuff where it's getting, even she's been like, this is a little too slow. So I'll probably have to retire it pretty soon. But, I couldn't use that every day to do work on. Like it's just too slow.
I think this has got to be true because there are some people still running probably Windows XP out there, to be honest.
But
how
Eric,
old is that?
2001?
Wow.
2003? 2? I don't know. I think I first saw it in 2003.
But Eric, in that machine, is that a regular hard drive or an SSD?
I changed it to an SSD.
And
it was still unbearable with the regular hard drive. Yeah, I had to.
Yeah. Because I've also used an X60 relatively recently that has an SSD, and that wasn't the best experience, but it wasn't, I could probably make it work if I had to, but I'd rather not.
I honestly don't even remember like the hardware profile of that system. She was 4 or 5, and this was years ago. And I had it sitting in the closet. I fired it up, got Ubuntu running on it, and it just kept going. And the next time I needed to upgrade to the new LTS, I did. And so it's got, I think it only has 2004. It might have 2204, but I think it's only 2004. And again, her using it, it's almost like an appliance. There's very little she's doing with it. There's a browser. There's, very minimal things.
Right.
She uses her tablet and her phone for most of the stuff. So, but if she needs a computer to do more, I'll just get her. And like we were just joking, like get a 10-year-old computer. Like I don't need to get her a new computer. I can get her a 5-year-old computer.
Yeah.
It would be perfect.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised it's that slow with 8 gigs of RAM and an SSD in there.
It's just the processor is just so slow, slow,
I see. Because
Yeah,
even
so-
with the X60, it wasn't. I didn't feel like it was really slow. But that's 3 gigs of RAM for crying out loud,
Yeah.
and a Core 2 Duo. So that's a lot.
So Ron Singh says his T420 rocks. There's an IPS 1080p screen hack for it that I did with a 2760 QM quad core CPU, M-SATA SSD, 2.5-inch SSD I use for my T420 for watching media on the big screen. Mint is the OS repurpose. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of things you can do. I was thinking about this. Like, I have some older computers. Like, I have some netbooks that are 2011, like 2010, 2011 era netbooks, I think is what they are. So they're what, 6 years old, and I'm bad at math. So
I was gonna say, are you waiting for someone to correct you?
I'm bad at math. Well, I don't like how fast time is going, because then that would mean like I'm in my 40s if it's actually 2023. So anyway, but actually it does okay if I'm doing like just like normal tasks I would have done in 2010. It does those tasks just fine. It's if I try and do tasks that are more akin to like what I'm doing today, that's really where it falls on its face. So I think that the reason we need these intense powerhouses is not because we have to write a paper. It's because we're doing other things that those machines weren't conceivably doing when they were created.
So what would you say would be an example of something done now that wouldn't have been done 10 years ago?
Well, I'm not going to edit video on those machines. I'm
Virtualization,
right,
containerization,
right,
like yeah, that stuff.
Anything that has any overhead, that wouldn't make it lean.
Oh, and like websites expect, like they get heavier and heavier, so your browser needs to be faster and faster. The JavaScript engines get faster and faster. I mean, if you're trying to run, like that's one of the pain points on that old laptop is using Firefox and then just browsing the web. To churn all of that processing that's happening on those web pages, like it's slow, it's not the connection.
And I will say one of the saving graces for those netbooks is I put uBlock Origin on them, and that makes the web browsing experience just fine, which is something to think about here, how egregious this advertising and so forth is. But
you could do better with a Pi-hole.
Well, I have Pi-hole also. So I have Pi-hole and then uBlock Origin, so that it's a double whammy.
Larris, that's only Pi-hole blocks the content, but it doesn't block the build of the page itself. That's where uBlock comes in. It actually removes pieces of the page that it's trying to load in. So they're kind of complementary. They don't, Pi-hole doesn't do the same thing as uBlock.
I was going to say, one of the things we present at the Linux user group, the AL Linux user group, is that if you have there's a pass mark on CPUs. It's a measurement. You can you don't have to run any software to get the pass mark. Just get your CPU number and then go search for that CPU and then the pass mark. But we typically recommend you don't try to run Linux on anything less than 1,200 pass marks. If you're running about 1,500 pass marks or higher, you could do something like a lightweight desktop like XFCE or LXQT. And then if you're 2,500 or more, you can run like GNOME or Cinnamon. So I don't know if that's going to help anyone, but maybe Eric, you can, if you look up that old computer, you can see what the pass mark is, and maybe we can talk you into a newer CPU.
Oh, I know that system it's one of those ones where it's going to run until it is no longer useful to anyone. And then at that point, I'll give it away to the local computer group so they could either tear it apart or, let a kid rip it apart and learn how that stuff goes together.
Yeah.
It'll find another use.
That's good.
Yeah. No, there's no such thing as throwing a computer away. Yeah, we changed offices one time. This was one of the most disgusting corporate glut things I've ever seen. Our company went from small regional offices to centralized operations, and that meant there was a lot of redundant equipment in the field. And instead of the company spending the resources in trying to either rehome and, you know, get those computers somewhere else where they could be useful, or at the very least donate them to someone. Their solution was to get a train car sized dumpster and just throw everything in the dumpster. And I'm standing there going, no, you're not on my watch, buddy. And I ended up getting like pallets full of old like 386 systems that were still useful to someone. And we had a guy come in and he loaded them and took them. But I mean, the idea that anything that still works gets thrown away into the landfill just makes me want to scream. Like,
It was the most egregious thing that you've seen.
right.
I'm sure
Right.
there's way more. I've seen some pretty egregious stuff too.
Yeah.
By Uncle Sam, just like literally tossing brand new things
Wow.
into a burn pit, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And so
If we can't use it, no one can. Yeah.
So-
Oh, I did. I had wire racks of of like PCs and monitors and keyboards, and like, you know, I saved as much as I could.
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. I mean, those are Core 2 Duo machines, so they're not as useful now today for a
So-
lot of things, but they're still good for some things.
Yeah.
Honestly, like I had a MacBook from 2010 that I was able to upgrade to 16 gigs of RAM. It's got a Core 2 Duo in it as well. And I was running Zoom on it every day, practically living on that thing. And it worked out pretty well, even with web browsing and whatnot. It just died because I ended up spilling water on it like a moron. But eventually the keyboard stopped working and the whole thing just kind of died on me. But, you know, sometimes you're able to get more life out of it. I mean, I switched over to an SSD as well, and that really made a difference. And so sometimes you can get a little extra kick out of an old machine and keep
Yeah.
it alive, even if it's a little longer.
What is going on in chat? Where did this whole ads blocking thing come from? From the uBlock? Did you start this, Nathan?
Well, actually, Leo started it.
Oh, okay.
We're gonna blame Leo on this one, but it's essentially it was I said I even blocked my ads on cubiclenate.com. And that doesn't help me out, and I don't care if people block them either. I run them there because there's a lot that it does help pay for it. But you know the problem that we have with older computers not being as functional is because of how egregious the trackers are on ads on the websites.
Yeah.
That's really the only reason. So if these ad companies could just like stop being insert expletive here, then the need for ad blocks would not exist. But because they're so awful, just terrible, is the reason that they exist. So they're probably doing themselves a disservice by all these trackers. All right. So what percentage of people actually block ads now? I wonder.
Well, so I was just going to say that I've been blocking ads for so long that I forget
Really?
what it's like to see a web page with all of that stuff in it. And if I go to someone's house and they're trying to show me something on their computer and they don't block ads, I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
this is awful, you know, like between the videos playing and like all of the ridiculous stuff, you know, and I'll just say, here, let me install a little extension for you. And then their life is never the same.
So I can relate to what you're saying because I mean I've only been using the ad blockers for months now. It's been a period of months.
Oh, geez. Okay.
You know, and it makes a big difference. Like even on my MacBook Pro, I have that on there with the Firefox extension. So I appreciate not having to deal with all that extra nonsense. Like that gets annoying. Stuff popping up. It's like I didn't ask for that.
Yep.
I want to go to here.
Well, the thing too is like with a Pi-hole, if I don't have that on my network is almost useless because I don't have a big pipe. And so you have these companies that are probing you for information unnecessarily, in my opinion, and stalking you around the internet. You got to shut them off. Otherwise, you're basically paying. There's your electrical costs.
Wow.
There's your web costs and everything else.
Yeah.
That's going along with it. So if you don't have an ad blocker and you have any kind of a metered internet, then you're paying quite a bit extra. I mean,
Wow.
just by blocking that stuff, you're saving yourself time and money. And as far as I'm concerned, you're doing the electrical grid a favor. So
Yeah. And that's honest. I started blocking ads back whenever you were paying for dial-up, basically,
Mhm.
because like Nate's saying, every picture you downloaded, every ad was another bit of data that you were paying for. And when you had a 2 gig cap for the month,
Yep.
or whatever it used to be, like you had, and same thing with it, on your phone and stuff like that. So, I guess I've just always blocked ads, and that's why I've never, people complain about it. I can't use this website. I'm like, oh, website's fine. What are you talking, so, it is amazing to me that it isn't more common knowledge that you can, but I guess people just don't care or don't know, or
Well, sure, the internet's so fast for so many people, they don't notice. Their phones, phones are so incredibly powerful.
But Nate, trying to look at certain websites on your phone, that little bit of screen real estate, they've got a banner ad at the top, they've got a video playing in the corner, they've got a pop-up that comes. It's like there's no room left to actually see whatever it is you were looking at,
Right. You got to keep hitting the close button because no, I don't want to subscribe. No, I don't want to subscribe. Stop it. Leave me alone.
Right.
Stop badgering me.
Yeah.
But see, if that's all you know, and that's all you expect, that can kind of be in somebody's mind too.
Good point.
You expect it to be this way. You expect it to have to go through all those changes. So that's why it's just ridiculous how we pay extra for other people to make extra money off of us that we don't benefit from.
Also they're doing one of those ever go click on a website, like every once in a while, they clickbait me and they get me some topic that's interesting, or click on this for whatever. Oh, okay, that seems interesting, and they click on it, and they have to hit next page and then next page and the next page, but it's not actually anything that is relevant. Like they're just trying to get those extra clicks out of you because those clicks turn into dollars or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
the shame of it is,
yeah.
The shame of it is, like the alternative in chat said, I really wish websites wouldn't use JavaScript. We wish that there weren't advertisements. Everything is funded by advertising, so it has to exist. The problem is the bad actors, like Nate's cubiclenate.com, just as an example. Like Nate has ads on there, but they're not in your face. They don't interfere with your ability to consume the content. And that's really where I think where you have to draw the line. If you're blocking my ability to see something, or you've impeded my progress or ability to get to the content, then that's where it's a problem. Like Nate, I like ads that are interesting because they're telling me about something I didn't know about.
Yeah. Same.
And so I don't like, but because of how bad some ads are, or how profane and disgusting some ads are, like, you're reading a site about, cars, and all of a sudden you've got a woman's butt in your face. Like, what is going on?
Right.
And it's just, it's stuff I don't need to see. And, they're the ones that ruin it for everybody. And so it's not JavaScript's fault. JavaScript is an extremely useful thing. It makes websites interactive. Like, websites would be boring if their JavaScript didn't exist. But, because people have found ways to exploit it, which they always will, they ruin it for everybody. So
I don't use AdBlock. I've never used AdBlock.
Wow. You're a brave man, Colin.
Maybe he's running Brave.
No, I use Firefox.
I was
well, and I'll tell you what, browsers have gotten better with building in. They don't block ads, but they are better at blocking malicious content, scripts, and also trackers and things like that. So, I remember whenever none of that was done, and you had to block third-party cookies, so they, you had to do a lot of sort of tweaking, and now there really isn't nearly as much. So
maybe it's just my browsing habits, because I got a lot of things, locked in on the on the bookmarks, and I just read Linux news and go to the same places all the time, YouTube and whatever. So maybe I used to experience a lot of pretty bad ads. I still do on the phone, which is what Nate was talking about. You're just looking for a story and nothing's relevant to the story. And I'll be sitting next to the missus. I'll say, where did this story go? What happened to this story?
Yeah, they were looking for impressions.
Yeah, but that happens on the phone because you quite often you might be clicking a link from something else or whatever, but that looked interesting. But on the computer, my habits are a lot different on the desktop. I tend to just go to the places I've bookmarked and don't sort of go outside of those things. So those places are quite okay. They've got ads and they're fine, and distro watch and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
OMG Ubuntu and all those sorts of sites I'll read. But yeah,
And those are all sites. Those are all sites that do well. They're not, OMG Ubuntu has ads, but it's not like in your face.
Yeah, it's not in your face, like you say. And the worst ones are, like you said, the ones that's playing in the background and you can't figure out where is that sound coming from.
Right.
And I've even closed a browser before, and it's like it's still running. How's that possible?
Yeah. I actually, not to belabor the point, but I actually like ads when they're respectful and when they're on a product that I think is important. Like, I've actually, clicked on some ads because I thought that the thing was interesting. Like I didn't buy it because it's like not that I need it, but I thought it was really cool. It was a light strip you put under the hood, the lip of the hood of your car, like around the front. And so when your car turns on, it does like this, like almost like Transformers looking effect, whatever. And I thought, man, that would look so good on my minivan.
Nice.
Anyway, yeah.
I don't use AdBlock because I think, so there's other really bad ones out there, but I mean, people that, when you go to a website or watch a YouTube video, I know myself, I run a YouTube channel, but I let ads run sometimes on YouTube videos because, that person deserves to have that ad and get paid for it in some way. Right. So I have that sort of attitude, especially when you're reading websites and all that. So if I am using an ad blocker, I might not be doing them a favor to the places where I'm visiting quite regular. So, it's, people do work hard when they're putting things on a website or YouTube channel.
So that's a very good point, Colin. So for those of us that actually use ad blockers, do you unblock certain sites, especially if they pop up and say, hey, we're trying to make money, and would you please consider unblocking us? And I'm like, yeah, okay, I will.
Yeah,
so
I do.
Probably hundreds of sites that I have unblocked, whitelisted in uBlock because I'm okay with it. Yeah. Like all the ones you mentioned, all the news sites, OMG Ubuntu, like all of those Linux sites I have unblocked because all of them do a good job of balancing, ads and content.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
it shouldn't be the extra work to reward properly behaving sites, but it is.
Yeah. It's okay.
What can you do? All right. Well, hey, thanks, Eris, once again for a great poll about how old is your newest computer, and that went spiraled into ad blocking. So that's why I love these polls, because they are great conversation starters.
There was a logical progression there. How could you use a computer that was that old and performance and
yeah, and I'm saying that's what happens. So
I mean, we got into the weeds, but the weeds were on the same piece of property. We weren't like across town. So
well, it was actually that little part of the property where it's kind of like, is it the neighbors or yours? There's a lot of trees there and some weeds. It was kind of that part of the property.
Yeah. Steve Anderson says he has YouTube Premium. I do too. I have for years. And the creators actually get more money from people who watch their videos as premium account holders.
What does premium cost?
It just went up to $17 a month. So it's not cheap, but it is. There are 3 of us using it. So I look at it that way. And because I'm a YouTube creator, I like the idea that instead of blocking ads, I'm actually contributing. I'm getting rid of ads, but I'm contributing back to those people.
Right.
And I watch YouTube more than I watch anything else.
Yeah, that's probably the same here. Podcast and YouTube.
The pie chart of my viewing habits is like 90% is probably YouTube. So
yeah, that's pretty much for me too. Some things I just listen to because it's not really necessarily visual heavy. It's just a guy talking, whatever.
Oh,
Or
Steve said YouTube Premium's 12 a month. I think I must have Red or Family. I think it's
Ultra
the family
Premium.
plan.
You got the
I
Ultra
think the
Premium.
the
Something.
family plan is $23 a month.
I'm only 17. They just raised me to 17, so maybe I'm grandfathered or something.
You're probably grandfathered in. 'Cause
Yeah.
it was a big
Oh,
story for Linus Tech Tips because
and
he had talked about how ads or something are ethical. No, how YouTube Premium is necessary and all these things. And then the next week, and they raised the price of YouTube Premium, and he gets YouTube Premium for his family too. And he's like, they had
Yeah.
to get me the next week afterwards.
So Prophetic made a comment. You get YouTube Music included, and the answer is yes. So we also all use YouTube Music as well.
Oh, that's
Premium.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway, thanks again, Eris, for these polls, and I look forward to every one of the polls that you pull out of that magic hat of yours. All right, well, now it's time for us to muddle our way through the news, and I'm going to kick it off with, speaking of old computers, or how old is your computer, but I saw this really neat article. Actually, I heard it on actually a podcast I was listening to on YouTube, I think this morning, you can now play Wolfenstein 3D. Who's here played Wolfenstein 3D? Somebody here played that? Great game, especially when it first came out. I thought it was great anyway. Although I like Doom better. But anyway, Wolfenstein 3D now runs on a 1979 processor with CGA graphics. So somebody has taken the time to demake or remake a version of Wolfenstein 3D to run on the Intel 8088 microprocessor made 1979 that kicked off the PC. And I thought it was crazy that this was done. So this game developer James Howard, a co-founder of Little Cities studio Purple Yonder, and it has adapted Wolfenstein 3D for the CGA era graphics cards. It renders the landmark shooter in video modes available in the early 1980s, such as 4-color RGB, composite CGA, and the Tandy 160 by 200 16 color. There are also black and white dithered versions for use on monochrome LCD versions as well. Now, I mean,
Look at that.
Mark's got his
look at
Flocky.
that. Nice.
Love it.
That's amazing. So it says the 8088 is an important piece of computing history. It was a modified version of Intel's first 16-bit chip, the 8086. They used an 8-bit bus. That meant that it was compatible with cheaper 8-bit supporting chips that were available at that time. And that's what allowed IBM to create the home PC, the Model 5150, which I have one of those, but it's not functional. And so I thought it was really interesting. So someone really took the time, really worked very hard to make Wolfenstein 3D, something we all know and love, or at least know anyway, to run on old hardware. Now, do you think, the segue from that, based on Eris's poll, do you think that there is, or I should say, how much room do you think there is for optimization in the code that's being used on the software today to extend the life of PCs?
I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, every time, the proof of that is that every time there is like the M1, right?
Mm-hmm.
What did the M1 functionally do besides making everything faster? It gave more leeway and more headroom for developers to add yet more heavyweight features onto an application, because the hardware is so much faster and capable now that even if it's poorly optimized, it's still going to be acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's with Moore's Law. When you saw the PC power of the PCs going up over and over and over, every 18 months, doubling in capacity or whatever, like developers didn't need to be frugal, because optimization ultimately is very expensive. It's difficult to do. It takes a lot of time and effort to go back and find, because at some point you're talking about like finding the tiniest little bits of return for a lot of effort. And so because this more powerful hardware was continually being brought to market, you had to make it good enough to run. And I mean, optimization, we saw a lot more in sort of games and stuff like that. But I think of like productivity software, server-based stuff, like some of this stuff, just put more memory in, get a bigger hard drive, Right. That was the solution. More hardware.
And I kind of think that maybe and I don't mean to belittle anybody's career, but maybe software programmers, software designers, whatever, are getting sloppy with their code, and because they're getting sloppy, we have these applications that are spinning out of control size wise and are not running very efficiently.
God, I think that's why the Raspberry Pi is so much fun, because you got a small computer and you push it till its limits to see what it can do.
Well, there's an old adage: it's more fun to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow.
Well, my teenage self would agree with you.
It's gonna be more fun to drive a fast car fast, but that's beside the point.
Driving a fast car fast is nowhere near as impressive as driving a slow car fast, in my opinion.
I don't have a fast car.
Anything else on Wolfenstein 3D? Everyone was happy about that. Anything else to say? Going once, going twice. All right, Jinda, OpenAI. What do you got for us?
All right. So for some reason, I decided to go try the open API or the Chat GPT, and I was more curious because everybody was talking about it, and it's the new latest hotness, I think, right? I mean, that's what everybody's talking about. So I went over to it and I signed up with my Gmail account, and I think there's like two sections of it. There's like a playground and another section that has to do more to do with that open chat one. It's the same company. For some reason, they have two different names for it. So for some reason, I just decided to type in something simple. Make a Linux bash script to update, install Zoom as a Flatpak, and then install Barrier. That's all I typed in, okay? And I hit the button. Not only did it work, it actually decided to check to see if or not I had Flatpaks already installed on the computer. Then it actually said, okay, I'm going to go add the repository, and it put, the hashtag on it to tell you the codes and stuff. I can paste the code in the chat if you want. And then after I did all that, in the first section on the top, it said, here's the script you asked for. And on the bottom of the thing, on the outside of the page, it says, oh, if you want to run it, here's how to do it.
That's wild.
Okay, and I tried it and it worked. So I kept on adding things to it, like more and more and more and more and more. Because okay, I'm just going to make it do everything I want to my system. I add all the stuff I want and take all the stuff out I want, just for fun. And I did. And it took me like an hour. It took me longer to figure out what I wanted than it did to actually do the script. How about that? That makes more sense, I think.
Now, the question I have there is it parsing the internet? Is it basically being a search engine and giving you the correct answer by reviewing all the information out there, or is it actually figuring it out itself?
I wish I knew the answer to that.
I'm pretty sure it's actually synthesizing it from things. So like, it's being trained on like large amounts of data, right? Like various bits of code, various bits of writing, whatever the data that's being fed into it. Ethics aside on that, I don't really feel like arguing the ethics and philosophy behind that, but the point is like it is like searching through many things on the internet and synthesizing a thing from those. So it's not going to like, this is some dude's answer on Stack Exchange and I'm going to just copy paste it onto this answer. It actually is taking bits from, say, various Stack Exchange posts that solve different parts of the problem and then giving you the answer synthesized from that.
So how different is that then, Adam? Because you had just chatted the other day about how much starting using GitHub's Copilot. Like Copilot isn't just dumping copied code out, like it's synthesizing.
It can.
Okay.
But like, yeah, the idea is, so Copilot works differently than ChatGPT. ChatGPT is very much a weighted kind of machine learning thing that is fed data from various sources, whereas Copilot is specifically within GitHub. Source code, yeah. So GitHub Copilot, the idea of it is to be, it's implied in the name, Copilot. It is not meant to create stuff exactly just for you. It's mainly meant there to help you with certain things. And it's a matter of like context, right? So if I pass in a comment that says like, configure Windows firewall for this, right? And it will give me the command as close to what I need there, right? Now sometimes ChatGPT, like in Jinja's case, like it will just spout out the whole thing and you can just copy paste and run, right? Most of the time when I've put in things like more complex queries and more complex things for work, it gets me about 90% there. It does about 90%, and then I just kind of, fill in my bits and trim off the bits I don't need or whatever, right? But ChatGPT is more of a synthesis thing, whereas I feel like Copilot is more of a context-aware, kind of a context-aware autocomplete, if you were. So think of like how IntelliSense, if you're familiar with that from Microsoft stuff, or just code completion kind of thing. It's like that, but like way more advanced, and it's just pulling from GitHub stuff, whereas ChatGPT is pulling from anything OpenAI throws into the model.
So is ChatGPT Skynet in disguise, or has it become self-aware?
No. So I'm going to say my piece, and then I'm going to step back on this and let everybody let them just watch the mess.
Okay, love it. Perfect. That's why you're here.
There are ethical and philosophical questions, and there are concerns ethically and philosophically. Spend your 10, 20, 30 minutes, however long you need. Have your tantrum, get upset, get mad, and then move on and use the tools. Because if you don't adapt to using these tools, someone else will, and you'll be left behind. Just saying. That's the end of it.
That's a good point. Like, a tool can be used for good or for bad. I can use a hammer to pound a nail, or I can use a hammer to pound somebody in the face. Both are something you can do with that tool. One is obviously not a good idea. So, I think I agree. The one thing that does concern me, not so much code, and maybe it should, but because things are open source, and code is getting very complex. So if you can actually have a Copilot or something of that nature help you to write things and make better code and help you to understand things, as a helper, that I'm fine with. I think the things that do concern me a little bit, and I don't care if my website's scraped, and if it helps somebody out, even if it's a machine, it'd be nice if they sent me a thank you. But if it helps somebody out, that's why I do what I do. But what I wonder though is for things like art, I don't know if there was some AI thing where you could ask for a picture of combining different elements, and it would scrape the internet for pictures that were relevant to that subject, and then it would synthesize something for you based on those other works, but it didn't necessarily cite those other works. And then there's concern that it could infringe upon artistic creativity and whatnot, because it's not being creative in and of itself. It's just synthesizing different works of art. And I think Star Trek: The Next Generation covered a lot of this stuff, in the exploration of artificial intelligence, I think. But I don't know if our society is moral enough or responsible enough to be able to handle the technology that we have right now. But that's a philosophical discussion.
I think to Adam's point, it's when it's used as a tool and it's something that it makes sense for people to use. I don't see it as a negative. I think where I see it as a negative is if people don't understand why the code is the way it is, and they're just accepting it at face value. That's more problematic to me. If you're using it as a tool because you don't want to do some repetitive, mundane task and it saves you time and it makes you more productive, better at what you're already doing, fantastic. But if it is a shortcut or a crutch for someone to do something that they really aren't very good at and are just sort of, relying on this thing to do it for them, then I think that's probably where I have more of an issue. And I don't even know if there's going to be any differentiation at some point.
So, a couple things. One, there is the concern of like bad actors and people using things in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been plenty of technological advances and plenty of various inventions and creations that have positives and negatives. Nothing is without unintended consequences. Like there's nothing that is objectively good and objectively bad. And that's no different here. Somebody invented a knife to cut bread. They also stabbed somebody with it. right?
Ah,
Right.
The knife itself is not choosing to be used in one way or another, right?
Right.
Artificial intelligence as it is right now, I wouldn't really call it intelligence. And like it's if you were to compare like the intelligence of even our best AI that we've seen publicly at least, it's like the equivalent of like the brain of a flatworm. Like it's nowhere near as complex as like a human in any way.
Mhm.
Sure, it can do, a lot of like calculations and synthesize things and all that, but it's really not that much in terms of information. That it's not that much in terms of complexity. But the tool itself is useful, then utilize it. Bad people are going to do bad things with it. Surprise, bad people do all kinds of things. My car gets me, to work every day. The car can also plow through a parade of people.
Which
You can get mixed up in the ethics of that all day long, but
Right.
that's beside the point. The second thing is on the art thing, there's currently some folks, doing some lawsuits against Midjourney is one of them for the art thing. And it's not necessarily like they broke a law or whatever, but it's probably mainly to set precedent that when it comes to copyright law, is it synthesizing art from someone else's stuff? Is that a matter of copying or is that a derivative work? Because if I as a human look at 10 different paintings and draw something that combines elements of all 10 paintings, I didn't copy their work, right? I made a derivative work of their work inspired by it. And that's exactly what Midjourney and others do. So I would argue it's derivative work, but that's a court thing to decide ultimately. But
I've got
I've
to
been
give
reading
this.
a lot on this stuff lately. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say I've got to give this a go because I hack on other people's bash scripts, which can be a lot of fun. But I'm just interested to see how that would, if I can actually simulate one of my complicated bash scripts to see if it can do that. It'd be interesting to see if it comes up real close to what I have already. Yeah, okay. That's interesting.
And that's actually one of the things that GitHub Copilot has been criticized for and potentially problematic with is that it's scraping code off GitHub. And originally, there are some guardrails now, but the idea is like, what if it scrapes code from something that has a license that's not as permissive, right? So if it scrapes code from say a LGPL3 and I don't give attribution to that code that I got it from because I don't know where it came from, Copilot threw it at me, right? Like, am I now in violation of that license because I took code from it and didn't give attribution, right? So like, that's more of an explicit violation rather than. But of course, we've seen who the hell goes after people for open source licenses, but not really the point. It's just, yeah, there are some ethical issues here, but
I suppose if you're using it for yourself, it's not a problem, is it? But if you're
right, if you're using it in a commercial sense, though,
yeah, then that's an issue, right?
right, and a lot of and it could be really. It can be really helpful for professional developers and DevOps folks and all that. But if you're an employee of a large company and you start violating code licenses left and right because everybody's using Copilot, well, now you're in a bit of an issue, right?
Right. Yeah, it's all pretty wild when you think about it. The whole thing. And so now, Jinda, I'm curious. So you used OpenAI. That's what you used.
Yep.
And you just you put it in your query there. I haven't checked any of that AI stuff out. Nothing's excited me, but like, I'm working on a little Python program and I'm wondering if something like that would maybe help me to understand little bits. Like, I want to do this, and then it would explain or show me how I need to do that particular thing.
That's exactly how I used it. I sat there and said, okay, I want to start learning code. And I sat there and started asking it questions to see how to do stuff more so than me trying to look online to figure it out. And the scary thing about it is, like Adam said, it wasn't what I was doing wasn't complex, but it did do it right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, that I think if you get too complex, it will get you 90% there anyway. And it is it is a great learning tool.
Yeah.
Did you have to sign up for that? Do you need to sign up? Or
I just signed up with my Gmail account, and in 10 seconds I was writing code, and I spent time all night.
I actually used ChatGPT for a coworker who was trying to get a regular expression thing, and he couldn't figure out like what regex to write, because regex is just a bunch of gobbledygook characters that look like nothing, right? And so I put it into ChatGPT. I was like, he was trying to filter out URLs that only had this domain in it. So I was like, write me a regex that includes a URL that only has this domain. So it wrote it, but I noticed it didn't include things after the URL. So instead of rewriting the question, because ChatGPT works like a conversational model, I then just said add things beyond the last slash as well, and then it just took knew what the previous thing was, and then added the thing I told it to add, and then said and then I realized, I need to make sure it handles HTTP and S, and so I was like, make sure it handles HTTP and S, and it was like, okay, here it is, and ultimately it gave me the correct one at the end. But it's a conversational thing, so you can kind of refine it without having to restate your thing. You just do it like you would a person, right? Hey, write me this. Oh, add this. Wait, move this. That kind of thing. So it's a pretty neat tool.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna play with that now, because there's when I get to these little stumbling blocks, I don't know how to do a thing, and then I spend so much time searching the basically Stack Exchange or some other sites for an answer, and I don't get an answer that actually works. I wonder if maybe, it sounds like a fabulous search engine that synthesizes information for you quite nicely. I think the only thing that who should be in trouble here, who should be shaking in their boots, is to Google. Because if you can,
and they're very afraid.
Be afraid.
They are.
So maybe it's a democratization.
It was described as a code red moment for them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like an internal thing that they say when it's like we got to do something about this moment. Yeah. Funny enough, OpenAI received a ton of money from Microsoft recently, and Microsoft has I was told, I haven't really verified this. I was told that Microsoft has some sort of commercial exclusivity, but the open stuff, they only have the commercial exclusivity to some of their products, but the rest of the products are still open to the public, right? So the public may not make money off of them, but Microsoft can, kind of thing.
Right.
But Microsoft has also stated that they are going to be building in ChatGPT functionality into their Bing search engine, which is a big deal, because if you look at already what ChatGPT is able to just synthesize for you, imagine that instead of Google searching and trolling through 5 to 6 different Stack Overflow and Stack Exchange posts, you just get the answer right in the front.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty good, right? So now suddenly that's why Google's worried, right?
It would be nice, and again, I haven't used it, so I'm just saying something here without any experience. Mm-hmm. But it would be nice if it also cited the works as well, like a bibliography. This is the information, this is where I got it. You know what I mean? That would actually be kind of nice.
Correct. So, yeah, it would, but I wonder how that would be possible, because it's synthesizing something. So I guess it's not necessarily making a link to a specific source, right?
Yeah.
So the AIs are trained in a way that's not too dissimilar to the way children learn. They're presented with various points of data, and each of them gets a weight. And as you figure out which is more correct than the other, the weight changes on each of them. So if I told a kid this thing I'm holding is a popsicle, and it is a popsicle, and then another person says it's not, but then a third person comes along and says this is a popsicle, and then another person comes along, it is a popsicle. The kid's well, 3 people says it is, and this one guy says it's not, so it's most likely a popsicle. That's the kind of idea of how that's a very very high level of how this thing would learn, right? So it gets a ton of stuff and then gets weighted whether or not is this correct, is this not, how often is this the way it is, and this the way it is, and all that.
I think it's easy to become sort of infatuated with this new toy, and I can create art just by typing words into a page, and there's a lot that is good with it, like we've just said, but I think there's also a lot of ability for this to be manipulated in terrifying negative ways. And the idea that you could be looking at something that has no basis in reality, and you have absolutely no idea and no way to verify what is real and what isn't anymore, because it's all just nothing's real anymore. You know what I mean? Like when it is that easy to create something that appears real that isn't, then all things become question in my mind. You know, I can't now trust anything I see as being legitimate and real and not being a fictitious creation of a computer somewhere.
It's true. Eris, what do you got?
I was gonna say that it was interesting when I clicked on the link for Chat GPT. The first thing it asked me was it was if I was human or not.
Yep.
And what did you tell it?
I said yes, and it agreed.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, is this-
Don't you love that, like that kind of thing? It's like, hey, do you work here? Yeah, checks out. You know, just like that kind of exchange, right?
So does this put teachers out of business, out of work? You know, people who teach code and all that sort of thing.
No.
No.
This probably puts a lot more work on teachers though.
I see ChatGPT and Copilot and these like for specifically software development. They're not useful for necessarily teaching fundamentals and like things like that, like the very early parts. But if you're like an intermediate person or to advanced, like this kind of just basically does the Stack Exchange searches for you in a way. Like it's really like a shortcut to just get things done. I don't think it's that useful for like teaching you actually what's going on. It might explain what the code does. Like if you ask it for code, it will usually give you an explanation at the bottom what it like is doing. But if you don't understand the fundamentals or what exactly it's like doing, yeah, you're not gonna get much out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it doesn't put teachers out of work any more than a book does. I think it's just another tool for teaching, perhaps. But I think, to your point, Eric, about like what's real, that I think that's something that has kind of been a struggle for a while. I mean, think about when was it? It was like that radio like in the 1950s when they what was it? War of the Worlds. Yeah, I mean, people freaked out about a story on the radio. So it's not like that. This is a new problem about what's real. I think we should have to be more discerning about what's real, and that's a hard thing for I think humans to train too.
Yeah, it's fine. I'll be the lone dissenter if I need to be. I see this as being.
No,
I
I'm
see
with you
people
in some ways, Eric.
I see
totally am.
people being very engaged and interested in seeing all of this move forward, and I see almost no discussion about what does this mean. You know, what does this do to
Ethical dilemmas.
And I, I'm on that point of my young life. I lived without any of this, right? None of this existed. This is all brand new from, a midpoint of my life. And, my daughter and generations moving forward, this is the world. This is reality, and to me, we've already lost so much. I'm sorry. We've already lost so much of what the world was for a very long time. And now this just plunges us further into non-reality, I guess, is my point. Like
the metaverse?
And well, whatever that is.
Ready Player One?
Yeah. I mean, I've made my living in technology and computers, and I think that computers and technology have done a lot for our species, but I do definitely worry about where is that tipping point where it becomes less about being useful. I don't know how to articulate my feelings precisely.
I think this is kind of
I have an abundance of caution, I guess, is the way I feel about it.
And I think you should. And I think that there should always be abundance of caution, and things should be taken, one step at a time and understand it. And I think part of the problem that we're having in society today with technology is a lack of maturity. I think that social media is actually more of a danger to the next generation than ChatGPT at this point, or any of the AI stuff. However,
maybe
combine the two.
Yeah, if we can combine the two and everything can be I'm sure that's already been done in some way, and I don't even want to know. I didn't want to know how twisted things can get. Like, I don't want to know. But I think at the same time, I think like not to say that I'm a great parent, because I'm not, but I try to limit how much digital time there is. Not I don't necessarily mean screen time, But I just mean like, there's because I watched a lot of TV as a kid. I think that's just as bad as YouTube or whatever else. But the things like I want my kids to experience the reality, life. Go outside and play. Go, go climb a tree, but not too high, not that big one because I don't need to fall and break something. But there's dangers in everything, I think. But I think having a healthy sense of what of the physical from the digital, and I don't know where that line is, but I do know when it's time that I need to shut the internet down and say, all right, we're all going to the park. Nope, no phone for you. Okay, wait, Pokemon Go, that's all right, or something like that. This is something that I think is not good or bad necessarily. I think this is something that requires, as you said, an abundance of caution. And where this leads us, I have no idea.
I'm totally with you, Eric. Like it does require like a lot of thought, and I know like it sounds like there's a lot of people who are like really pumped about it, and there are definitely plenty of people pumped about it, and like there's a lot of hype and a lot of that whole thing, which comes with a lot of other things, right? But the people who are actually thinking about these things are usually the ones in charge right now, at least. And there's a lot of ethical and philosophical questions that are being asked, and ultimately especially the people at OpenAI, because I've read about their work, and those folks, like, they are very aware that like humans still have control over this, right? And at some point, we will have to, if science fiction were to be believed, at some point we would have to kind of let go and let it be its own thing, right? But
Right.
while we still have that control, it is a very ethical and philosophical thing to like make sure that that's directed in the right way. But being humans, right, as a parent, don't you want to like direct your kid in a good way to like make them grow in the right direction?
Yes.
Well,
What you do as a parent, what they do as a parent, or whatever, that's the difficulty, because like
So,
one person seems
if-
ethical, the other might not.
if we're thinking of that parent relationship, or let's just say that I guess one of the things that is frustrating about technology in general is that the traditional structure of society, where government and other society, other structures in society are part of, of the things that are happening that can make a reasoned decision. Now, there's plenty of situations where, especially with science and technology, that the people in power don't understand it and can't really make informed decisions. But I think that their gap between the knowledge of the average, say, legislature or person in Congress or senator or whoever is so far away from where we live in technology now, that these things continue to evolve and move forward, and there's absolutely no kind of like, not oversight necessarily, because there's no point in stifling it, but just like understanding and really being able to look at it objectively and say, like, what is happening right now? Where are we going? And what do we need to do, if anything, to just make sure that, those philosophical questions, those, I just don't feel like if the company who builds the technology is the one responsible for that, I don't feel good about that. I really don't.
It's easy to kind of lose yourself in like the spirit of the day, right? Like right now it's OpenAI and ChatGPT and stuff, but artificial intelligence research goes all the way back to like the 60s, right? So this is like decades of people, of not just like this company, but there's decades of people asking these ethical and philosophical questions while doing this kind of research. It's obviously been slow, mainly from a computing resource perspective. Like that's been a big, computational resources have been limited, but like it's only in recent time that we have enough computational resources to really get these things done in a meaningful way. Like,
right.
You didn't hear this kind of outcry when like the AI dude won chess matches, right? Everyone's just like, computer got him, lol,
Right.
Like, but the same questions should have been asked then, and they were, just not by the people hyping a product. They were asked by researchers and developers at all these various universities, government folks, companies, etc. There's plenty of people who are thinking about this stuff and have an influence in this stuff.
Mhm.
It's just right now it's so focused on like, man, ain't it cool I can bust out this bash script, right? But
that's what we
trust me,
see.
there are people behind the scenes that aren't just looking out for commercial interests that do consider these things.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to take your word for it. I'm much more cynical than you are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you shouldn't be, but you know.
So
Well,
just,
to,
go ahead.
to go along with part of what Eric was talking about, there are people in charge making very important decisions on things that they do not themselves understand. And to me, I just feel like on a basic level, that's ridiculous because you have people that aren't able to think in a way and understand what's actually going on, but you're making decisions. I don't agree with that mentality. You need people that understand what's going on so that they can be logical and that things can progress, in the way that they should, and that's really where I'm at. And I know that kind of goes into a number of different subjects, but that's a basis for
Well,
where my mind
I
is.
think good leaders have good advisors, right? People who are smart enough to
Okay.
know what they don't know
Mhm.
will go and find the people that do know.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I think there are enough of those enlightened people that are humble enough to say, I don't know something. I'm going to go get the information. I sure hope there are. But I think there are, I do have that. I may be a cynic, but I at least have that amount of faith that,
Okay.
people aren't just bluster, aren't, so full of themselves that they're just like, oh yeah, I understand all this. I'm just going to vote on something.
So I think, well, the whole like the right to repair debacle, like that all that stuff, that's an area that kind of chaps my hide a little bit. But that aside, I think that, and again, I'll be very careful how I tread this because I don't want to get someone to accuse me of things that are untrue. But I think that working on the cultural aspect of technology and how it affects culture is more important than the political portion of it, because I believe that politics is downstream from culture. So if we are as a culture, as a society, responsible with our tech, and we as a society decide rules of how we use this tech without legal whatever, if the culture is healthy, then it's not really as much of a problem. But again, that is a problem because culture, I think, is largely not healthy. But I don't have an answer for how you fix that other than to try and be the culture that you want society to be for those around you, and using your computer responsibly, using these tools responsibly, and so forth. So I think the only real answer there, I think, is to promote positive implementations of technology, not things that cause destruction. And again, that's you can't change the whole world, but you can at least affect the part of the world that rubs up against you, and do the best you can to try and say, well, I disagree with this, and this is why. I have, like Eric, you say, I have concern about this, and this is why, and that should be vocalized. And I think without that dialogue, without people talking about that and saying that, that's really where the problem begins. So as long as nobody is stifling your point of view, I think it's okay. But once that there's some sort of a coalescing of some kind of a power that pushes against your ability to freely voice your concerns, that's, I think, where the problem begins. And but we as a culture have to stand as nerds and I don't want to say regulate the technology, but appropriately endorse the acceptable, as we see it, use of technology. But I don't have the answer for any of that. You know what I mean? Like, but I think that's the only real way. I mean, there used to be laws in the books. You can't put a fresh baked pie in the window, but that's because bears would attack. But once the bears were kind of driven away, you had to remove those laws. The law didn't make sense anymore. So there's a cultural enforceability to something, and I think that's really where I think we have to remember that our interaction with our community is really the most important part about the responsible usage of a lot of this technology. And like Adam says, we have to be aware of the tools, understand how they work, not be Luddites necessarily about the technology, but use it where it makes sense, and then discourage usages of it that I think are harmful. And also both Eris and Leo have said now, quoting from Jurassic Park, your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. I think we have to remember it's what we ought to do, not necessarily what we want to do. And again, that falls back into the cultural aspects of it. So, but yeah, what a great discussion. And we are it's past 10 o'clock, but although, I did lose some time here because of, the crazy internet going down. I angered the internet gods. So I had another story I wanted to talk about, but next week. So what we do have to do is talk about what our main course is for next week on the menu for the Linux Saloon. And that's an application appetizer. Now I didn't get any suggestions, so I didn't have anything in the suggestion box. But I did have a thought, kind of based on what Prophetic was talking about earlier, which is, would you guys want to test out and play with DistroBox? Is that something that might be of interest, or is that it's something that I've not actually mastered? I played it a little bit, and I didn't really get very far with it, and whatnot. It's just an idea. You can say terrible idea. I think that's a big stinker. I'm good with that. But if you have any other ideas for maybe an application we should try out or something we should try out that we can run on our distributions, or
how does DistroBox work? Is that an application, or is it? I know some people using it within the immutability thing. I think DistroBox I've seen, but
it is.
I don't know how it works on its own. I didn't even know it works on its own.
So my understanding of how DistroBox works, I think it's kind of like an easy way to use Linux inside a terminal, almost like a chroot setup sort of a thing, where it runs inside your system, but not necessarily entirely containerized. It allows you to try distributions via the terminal according to its FOSS. So here is DistroBox.
Yeah,
I can put it here.
So the why from the GitHub page, why would we do this, is provide a mutable environment on an immutable OS, provide a locally privileged environment for pseudoless setups, to mix and match a stable base system, e.g. Debian stable, Ubuntu LTS, Red Hat with a bleeding edge environment for development or gaming, leverage high abundance of curated distro images for Docker, Podman to manage multiple environments.
Is this too
okay.
Is this too too high level, too difficult? Not difficult is not the right word, but the time commitment for this, is this too much for what we can do in a week? That'd be my question.
Probably. I think so.
Think so?
Yeah.
Maybe.
This might be started at the beginning of the month and come back at the end of the month and talk about it or something.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I like Sean Gold's suggestion. I like to look into health, wellness, exercise apps in the open and closed source environments. Just a suggestion. Yeah, I've explored a lot of them, and I hate them all. So actually, that's one of the things I started writing my own that I didn't hate.
Well, if you hate your own, you're doing something wrong.
Right. Well, I don't like mine right now, but it's one of those things. It's I've tried many different ones, and the problem is they're either inflexible, they don't allow me to store the information locally, or if I have a different exercise, I can't input my own anything in there. So it's too locked off because you have to have all these bits of information. So that doesn't work real well for me. So I'm working on a solution for that. Maybe I have ChatGPT or one of these other things help me. OpenAI might help me write it. So it is something I'm actively working on. Just much slower and less. I already got the database structure worked out. Basically, I want it to run on Linux. I want to run basically the three platforms I want to run, three major platforms to have it run on are Linux, like desktop Linux, Android, and Commodore 64. So I'm actually structuring the data so that you can actually have the Commodore 64 input and review the data, not necessarily process anything, but so far I'm okay in that regard. So as far as other applications to try out,
would it be the type of thing that we could have people pick their absolute couldn't live without application that wasn't like a website or browser based? Like what type of desktop based application could you not live without or something like that?
I like it.
I don't know.
Well, can I share my experience?
Yes.
Because
Yes, Colin.
I've had Joplin on my phone for a long time, never used it, but now I'm looking at building a new home. I'm selling the home, and there's a lot of information to be taken. Now, Joplin, I think, syncs with I think it was Gmail or Hotmail. I can't remember which one it was. So it keeps a little file on there, and it synchronizes between the desktop and the phone. So I find that there's some things you can't do on the phone that you can do on the desktop. And I think it has what you guys call Markdown.
Yes.
So you can put a heading on it and all that, and check boxes and all this sort of stuff. So I'm really finding that handy, because when we go and look at the house we're looking at building, we go to the display home, we check things out, I write things down on here, and then it's available on my desktop when I get home. So I find that really handy. So Joplin, even though I hadn't used it for a long time, has come in handy for me at the moment. So I'm really finding that a great tool. So,
Well, I mean, it looks interesting. So I'm using SimpleNote a lot right now, and then I have TiddlyWiki.
right.
I've used Joplin for 5 years, Colin.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So you find it really handy as well, or you don't use it that much now?
No.
Yeah,
I use it
so-
constantly. I have thousands of
Okay.
notes. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Hmm.
That's a good one too. All right, so then our two suggestions that are going to go on to the final voting is next week, try Joplin over the course of the week, or 2, bring your favorite app next week. Those are our 2 options. Which way would you lean?
I love the favorite app just because I always find new things people bring up and it's like, ooh, I've never heard of that. You know, that
True.
to me is interesting, but
I think that's a good idea. Oh, I second that one.
All right, so two votes. Okay, then anyone opposed? So let's go ahead and do that. It'll be like a application appetizer potluck. Everyone bring their own. Please, no hot mayonnaise salads, please. I don't want any. Now go ahead and bring it. If we all get sick off of it, that's fine. All right, so that does it. Next week, it's going to be a potluck application appetizer. I like it. Okay, and now for some housekeeping. Eris, you did some updates to, or we, I guess it wasn't. You basically pushed me to do this. I'm not saying it's your fault, but if everyone likes it, I did it. If you are all angry about it, it's absolutely Eris's fault. But I kind of like it. So we divided up the Linux Saloon Telegram. What is it called now? It's still
I think as message groups,
message groups.
sort of like threads,
Right.
like forum.
So it's a little bit more like, I think Eric, you called it like Discord Lite or something like that.
yeah.
And I noticed like Heather Brown, she brought that up before the internet took a proverbial poo on me, and but yeah, and so I think that's probably has some people maybe not like it, or I guess what would you say is the reasoning for doing this, like the core reasoning?
I think.
Sorry, you go, Eris.
No, go ahead, Colin. Go ahead.
I was gonna give my 2 cents worth. It's broken up into general chat, screenshots, and this week's topic. So, I mean, just looking at those 3 categories under Linux Saloon makes it easier to find things. So this week's topic was easy to find instead of trying to search back through, or Aris has to pin something so you can find it. So I can see that being an advantage, doing it that way.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I like it, with the idea that, so in the general chat, we have, it's basically the same as it has been, right?
Yep.
And then we have the screenshots, and so I think that's kind of fun. It can basically a place to dump your screenshots, to look at it, and so it's not intermixed. And then this week's show topic discussion. So there we can put all the like announcements, what's coming up next week, and things like that. So it's not.
StrawPoll.
Yeah, so it's easy to find, and I kind of like that layout. I think to me it makes sense, and it's
Yeah, and like someone had asked, I think it was like Johan or someone had said, does that mean we can't put screenshots in general anymore? And the answer to that in my mind was no. If you want to put it there, fine. But the whole point of the desktop captures or the screenshots was that that's where the sort of where all of them would be contained. And so if you just were kind of flipping through them, like that's where they live. But if you were like, I have a problem with my computer and I want to put a screenshot of something in general, like that doesn't, I mean, that makes perfect sense. I don't see a problem with that. I just, and you know, some people might not like it, but the point is like general has not changed in any way. It's still exactly the same as it was before this change. And the only thing is there's an addition of 2 separate rooms, one being for desktop captures and one being for the show coming up. And I could see using the one for the show as being a way to discuss those things without it being mixed in, because it's hard for me sometimes to actually follow stuff in general because there's just so much chatter about other stuff, which is great. That's the whole point of it.
Right.
But if I'm trying to figure out like what's happening with next week's show or who has done what further to that, you know, like has been working on it, like if that's in a separate spot, that just is a lot easier for me to consume it and actually, you know, look through it. That's my 2 cents. So,
but I like it because, you know, we can do all the show stuff in one spot, and then we don't have to like repin it and re-announce it or anything like that. It's there, and then it can just be referred to if necessary. But yeah, the general doesn't change. So I see Ben Fitzpatrick. He says I don't like it at all. I prefer the old way, to be honest, and that's fine. I just the problem with the old way is it was, you know, there's too much activity at some points, and then so like, you know, people would ask, well, what's the topic? You know, well, it's very easy to see what the next topic is for the show. It's got its own thread. So I think that makes it just easier to consume the information. But yeah, I mean, you can literally use it the exact same way, and it doesn't change really from a user perspective. At least it shouldn't. It just
right.
it's like bundling 3 different channels or 3 different streams into one, which I think is handy.
I hadn't thought of taking a screenshot of my desktop in years, and by creating that separate channel, all of a sudden I thought, I haven't done that in a long time. I used to do that all the time, you know, and post it to forums and stuff like that. So I don't know.
So
I didn't know people still did it.
So Leah said, so Nate's problem with Telegram is that it's not Discord. Noted. No, actually, I think here's the problem with Discord. I turn on my computer and it says I need to update Discord. So I go to up and it says, oh, okay, but it gives me 3 options. Deb, atar.gz, or I'll figure it out on my own. So I go to figure it out on my own, and I'll update the Flatpak, and then Discord doesn't work. Or I'll go and I'll update the Snap, and then it doesn't work. And then, you know, I'll update the RPM package, and there's no update. So it's like Discord, like the people at the helm of Discord, like they need to understand, like, I have a little flex time there before hammering somebody with requiring an update. You know, give them like a week or something, you know, unless it's like a 0 day or whatever, you know, like there's some kind of a flaw that's a egregious security issue, and they better push out that update very rapidly. So that's my thing. Discord is just constantly like, it makes me want to stop using Discord. Discord does a great job of driving me away from it. Yes, it is my own fault for turning off Discord. You are absolutely correct. I should just leave it on all the time, so it goes blink on me all, and then I can't sleep.
Yeah, that's one of those things about Discord is it likes to turn all the notifications on. If I think I have mine set now where most of them aren't defaulted on. I think there's a setting to default off on most of them, but every time I join a new server, there's a flood. And I have to go to that server and specify no notifications, like only at sometimes certain
And
channel.
all of you server admins that do at everyone, I'm gonna find you someday. I'm coming for you.
Here's the thing that
worst.
the thing that like bothers me about Discord is like I'll have the like little red bubble on something. I'll click on it. Okay, where's my notification, like at least with Discord and with Telegram, I can just click on the button, it'll take me right to it. But here with Discord, it doesn't do that. And I scroll through and I scroll through, and then I don't find anything for me. And I don't. So it's
Right.
like, well, why did you notify me? Get off my back. And so I don't know. I just Discord, just the user experience on it, just kind of, it smells like a musty basement. It just anyway. But I still use Discord. I like Discord ish. I want to like Discord. I do my best. We're just not getting along. I think I would have broken off my dates with Discord a long time ago, but we're trying to work it out.
Have you
I
messed with the
honestly much prefer Telegram. And I've been using Telegram for a good 7 years now. I've used Discord for a period of time, and I honestly prefer Telegram. I haven't quite put I don't know. I don't even necessarily understand why. I just know I do.
The funny thing about, so here's the way I look at it now. Mind you, I'm a KDE user, and people complain because KDE is like too complicated, and GNOME is more simplified and so forth. So Telegram is more like GNOME. It's simplified, and Discord is like Telegram. It's so complex, it can do all these things, but like I can't configure it the way I like, and so there's a cognitive dissonance there with me on like how I like my software, obviously.
Alternative made a good point about it would be nice if Jitsi worked perfectly, and I need to talk to Mark. Needs to tell us at some point how al.org has Jitsi working so well. Probably some massive server somewhere with a ton of bandwidth and memory. But
we're using the public Jitsi.
Oh, so public Jitsi's gotten better.
It has.
So
interesting. The OpenSUSE Jitsi is also really good because like they just throw all the, like when the servers are not crunching on something, it's all pushed toward Jitsi. And since OpenSUSE has just a massive server farm, that's why theirs works well.
Well, I'll tell you what, on al.org, and on the Jitsi meetings, I did the app image version of Jitsi, and it's very good. Way, way, way better than it was just like a year or two ago. So.
Oh, that's good to know, because I tried it on my phone, even with my mom and my sister, and I wasn't feeling it. But I'm glad to hear that it's better, because I would like something better than Zoom. Zoom is so ubiquitous. I mean, I've gotten so used to using that, but I would like to use Jitsi more.
Later, Colin.
We had 20 people on the call last week.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so always an option, I guess.
All right, well, we should probably move this thing along here, because we're way over time. Colin actually he abandoned the saloon. He's like, you know what, I'm gonna pay my tab. I'm out of here. You guys are keeping the doors open too long. So, if you have any suggestions, be they distro suggestions, applications, or whatever you got, send them to suggestions@linuxsaloon.com. Appreciate that. Also, we have a Linux Saloon calendar. So if you have any, if you want to see like what's coming up, you can actually check out. It's on the calendar. So I will update it with it's a Potluck application appetizer. So bring your own applications. And then also I will be blathering. I don't like the term blog. It sounds pretentious, but on cubicle8.com, I'll be doing like some wrap-up notes, things that people tell me after the fact and so forth. You can check that out at cubicle8.com if that interests you at all. So for our last call, I want to move on to that. So Steve's very own, he was here in the chat for a little bit. You can check him out most Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central. Don't know Pacific. He's got like a nice low-key chat. I enjoy it, and it's a great place to come and troll him because he trolls me. So please make sure you see him tomorrow morning or every Sunday morning, and make sure you poke at him. It'd be good. It's good for everybody. Mark, speaking of the Atlanta Linux enthusiast group, meeting tomorrow?
The Atlanta Linux enthusiasts meet online every Sunday at 3 p.m. U.S. Eastern, and it's for 3 hours. There's no set agenda. You're welcome to join and get help with your problem. Again, we meet on Jitsi, and this is very good. We allow people to share their screen, and then we can look at the problem and actually help them, work through the issues. And again, you can find more information on that at ale.org, ale.org. And anyone's welcome to join anytime. Again, we want to keep the topics to Linux and open source.
Well, when you say open source, that really that's a pretty big umbrella. Destination Linux, they're not streaming live tomorrow. They I guess did some changes, so they're not going to be doing live streams on the YouTube like they were previously. So I think Linux Saloon is the only live streaming for Destination Linux. So maybe we have to add another day. Maybe do like a midweek. I don't know. Gotta do something else. So Linux User Space next episode is if I'm correct here, but please feel free to correct me. It's a topic show. It dropped last Monday. It's chock full of all kinds of browser stuff, and they're still experimenting with CentOS. Linux Out Loud is recording live on the 17th of September at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So we're going to be doing a thing. I'll be streaming live on the TuxDigital, thing. So check that out. Also, I did if you want more on me, go to keepinglate.com. I guess I plugged it already once. Don't need to do it again. But I did an article on ad blocking and why you should. So check that out if you care. Linux Saloon is part of the TuxDigital network. Check out more great shows at tuxdigital.com. I want to thank you all for your support, however you do it, being part of the conversation in both the Zoom meeting and the YouTube stream, as well as everyone for watching the show after the fact. I want to thank everyone involved for making the Linux and open source tools possible for us to not only have this conversation, but also to have fun and enjoy technology. Linux truly puts personal back into personal computer. Thank you for stopping by. Be sure to tip your developers. And please remember to Linux and OpenAI responsibly. Until next time, see yas. You're muted. Oh.
Dave, I think
So-
the hardware today is so powerful that optimization just doesn't, you have to do it if it's obviously slow, if it's hard to use, but otherwise it's good enough in most cases.
So
Nate, you criticized software developers and then you
and
crashed.
my
Is
internet
that
went.
a coincidence?
So
you're muted.
My internet went down completely. Like everything was
Well-
down. Everything. Like I lost connection. My cellular uplink took a dump on me.
I want you to ask yourself, do you think that's a coincidence?
I don't think it's a coincidence. I think I upset the internet gods. So I
For a bit there,
apologize.
your video was immutable.
Yes, it was. I apologize to all the internet gods. So no, it looks like. Let me see what's going on here. All right, some quick things here.
Anyone remember the Simpsons gag where they had all the cables going into a box that just said Cisco Systems on the side?
Yeah, that was pretty wild. Like everything froze as I'm saying I have no idea what. So, anyway, there you go.
All right. Well,
That's
you're
what
back.
happens. Well, I have to reset some things here. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
I realized I had the wrong notes open. I apologize.
That's all right. Everybody here still loves you, including me.
I'm looking for them.
All like the different little bits and bobs, like the chat has got to be updated, and then I have to do the cool beans. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I very much appreciate you hanging out with me and suffering through my my internet going down.